Hello, my name is Taryn Dover, and this is my project for SCM 571 Operations Management. In this section, I will reflect on the goal project in SCM 571. I'll be reflecting on the book, The Goal, A Process of Ongoing Improvement by Alahua Goldratt and Jeff Cox from 2004, and how its operations improvement guidelines apply to my professional experience in the mortgage industry. I'll explore the core principles of the theory of constraints, key lessons that are shaping my managerial mindset, and specific applications to processes within my workplace. All right, let's move right along. So, part one, reading and reflecting on the goal. One of the most impactful frameworks introduced in the goal is the theory of constraints. Goldratt argues that in every system, there's at least one constraint that limits the entire system's performance. This was illustrated in the manufacturing plant when Alex Rago, the plant manager, discovers that no matter how much he improves the upstream activities, the system remains bottlenecked until the constraint is addressed. Goldratt emphasizes system-wide thinking, challenging the conventional focus on local efficiencies. For example, although some machines in the plant were underutilized, others, like the NCX-10 and the heat treat area, were overloaded, revealing the optimized parts of the system without addressing the current constraint can actually worsen performance. This makes perfect sense in my context as well. In mortgage processing, we often focus on front end speed, getting those applications in as fast as possible, but the delays always occur in underwriting, rendering those efficiencies meaningless. Goldratt's principle that the performance of the constraint dictates the output of the entire system is a lesson every operations manager must internalize. The goal presents operations management in a way that's strategic, not just technical. For me, one of the most valuable insights is the focus on throughput, inventory, and operational expense as the three essential measures of performance. These measures move beyond simplistic metrics like labor utilization and instead encourage a holistic view of profitability and flow. Through the character of Jonah, Goldratt uses the Socratic method to prompt Alex to discover answers for himself. This mirrors effective coaching strategies in management. As future leaders, we are reminded that guiding people to uncover solutions leads to deeper learning and engagement. The book also reveals that managerial intuition is not enough. Structured frameworks and data must inform decisions. For instance, Alex's team initially resists changing batch sizes, fearing inefficiency, but they soon learn that smaller batches increase throughput by reducing work in process inventory and queue time. This is a concrete demonstration of how theoretical change leads to measurable improvement. Several lessons from the goal have reshaped how I think about leadership and process improvement. First, the five focusing steps of TOC identify, exploit, subordinate, alleviate, and repeat offer a clear method for driving continuous improvement. Rather than implementing random changes, this structured approach ensures targeted, effective action. Another critical takeaway is the necessity of aligning every operational decision with the goal of the organization, which in the book's context is to make money. Jonah reportedly asked Alex, "What is the goal?" A simple question that focuses strategic clarity. This principle is applicable across sectors. In mortgage processing, for example, the goal might be to close loans efficiently while maintaining compliance and customer satisfaction. The book also teaches that constraints aren't just physical, they can be behavioral or policy based. For instance, resistance to change, long-standing scheduling rules, or outdated metrics can be major limiting factors. This lesson encourages me to look beyond equipment and staffing and question deeper assumptions when analyzing a process. In my current role in the mortgage industry, the relevance of TOC is clear. One major constraint in our process is the underwriting stage, which often delays loan closings due to limited capacity and high review volume. Goldratt's concept of subordinating other processes to the constraints means adjusting the rest of the process, like intake and documentation, to prevent excessive work in process piling up at underwriting. Another issue we face is batching, which is often done for perceived efficiency. However, as Goldrat explains, large batches increase lead time and mask problems. Switching to smaller, more frequent batches could increase throughput and reduce cycle times. The idea of a drum buffer rope system is especially intriguing. In our case, the drum would be underwriting, the buffer would be a controlled number of ready to review applications, and the rope would be regulate the intake process. This could help synchronize flow and avoid overwhelming bottlenecks. Lastly, applying TOC encourages better cross-functional alignment between intake, underwriting, and closing, just as Alex had to build collaboration between production, scheduling, and quality control. The goal goes beyond traditional operations textbooks by combining narrative with theory, making it a highly effective teaching tool. It reinforces that continuous improvement is not about doing more, but about doing better, which a focus on identifying and relieving constraints. The book has taught me to think like a systems leader, someone who evaluates performance from the top down and empowers teams to drive meaningful change. It emphasizes the importance of aligning decisions with organizational goals, using metrics that reflect real impact, and cultivating leadership that questions the status quo. As I continue to grow in my career, the goal will remain a foundational text that informs both my strategic decisions and my day to day management style. All right, moving on to part two, we'll go over process mapping and analysis. In this section, I will conduct a detailed process mapping and constraint analysis of the mortgage loan approval process using Goldrat's theory of constraints as the foundation. With a total staff of 38 people, this process has high initial volume, but a natural drop off as loans process through document collection and qualification. My goal is to identify the bottleneck, quantify system capacity, and propose realistic improvements that can streamline flow and enhance both performance and customer satisfaction. In a typical day, our intake team processes around 100 loan applications. However, not all applications process evenly through the process. Roughly half of them, around 50 or so, move forward after the initial documentation collection and pre-qualification. Then about one third, or 33 loans, go through the more labor-intensive stages of underwriting and final approval. This natural volume reduction reflects borrower readiness and documentation completeness. The drop-off is not necessarily a flaw, but must be accounted for in how we assign staff and manage throughput. If we don't adjust system capacity to the realities of process progression, we risk building queues, overloading downstream teams, and delaying customer outcomes. Goldrat's TOC emphasizes that focusing resources on the actual constraint where flow breaks down will yield the most improvement. That's the lens that I'm going to use here. So as you see, I've created a flow here with the arrows pointing down to each step in the simplified process flow. Each step corresponds to a handoff between different functional teams. The process begins with application intake, which is managed by our front-end loan officers. Those files then go to document collection, where loan processors verify income, employment, credit, and other required documentation. Pre-underwriting review happens next. This is often done by senior processors or pre-underwriters who screen files for readiness and before the underwriting team sees them. Then the file moves to formal underwriting, where risk analysis, regulatory checks, and eligibility assessments occur. If the loan is conditionally approved, it proceeds to final approval and is eventually cleared to close. Not all loans make it to the end. Many are delayed, sent back for more information, or canceled altogether. The process is linear but highly variable, which is why identifying the constraint is critical. So with a total staff of 38 people, this table shows how we've allocated team members based on both volume and task complexity. Intake receives the most applications, so we've assigned 10 staff members here. This team handles everything from customer action to initial data entry. Document collection is a high friction point where roughly half of applications fall off. So we've dedicated 12 staff to ensure coverage, re-verification, and follow-up. Pre-underwriting review is handled by a smaller team of 6, focusing on files that are progressing and need deeper checks. Underwriting is our most constrained resource. We currently have 6 full-time underwriters who each spend several hours per file due to risk assessment, income verification, compliance documentation, and internal policy reviews. Lastly, 4 staff handle conditional approvals, final clearances, and QC functions. This allocation is designed to balance flow, but as we'll see in the next slides, it's not fully optimized against our true demand. Based on time studies and internal reporting tools, we've estimated each step's average time per file and calculated the total daily capacity per staff role. Intake requires only about 30 minutes per loan, so each loan officer can handle around 16 loans per day. Given that steep a collective capacity of 160 loans per day, document collection takes more effort, around 2 hours per file, so we can only process about 48 loans a day at that stage. Pre-underwriting reviews take about an hour per loan, resulting in a capacity of 36 loans per day. Underwriting is thus our slowest and most resource-intensive step. Each file takes around 3.5 hours to underwrite, and with staff of 6, we can only process 12 loans per day. That's well below the incoming volume at this stage, about 33 loans per day, making underwriting our true bottleneck. As Goldratt asserts, improving any non-bottleneck step will not improve the overall throughput unless the bottleneck itself is addressed. End to end, the active processing time per loan is about 8 hours. However, the time loans spent sitting in queues between departments, waiting for the staff to review, request documents, or reassign files, these idle times increase our total cycle to around average of 3 to 7 business days and sometimes up to 10. The underwriting stage, which is limited daily capacity of 12 loans, acts as a dam that slows everything else down. Even though fewer files reach this step, the cumulative effect is significant. Cumulative effect is significant. If we can improve throughput at underwriting, we can reduce delays across the entire process. Goldratt's logic tells us that increasing throughput at the bottleneck, not speeding up upstream processes, is the only way to alleviate system-wide performance. Let's quantify the mismatch between capacity and real-world demand. On average, we receive 100 new applications daily, roughly 33 loans making it through underwriting. However, our underwriting team can only process 12 loans per day. That leaves a shortfall of 21 loans daily, an unsustainable buildup that creates long queues and turnaround delays. Our goal is to approve loans within 3 to 5 business days. Due to the constraint, we are averaging closer to 7 to 10 business days, especially during high volume periods. This means we're consistently underperforming relative to customer expectations. The longer it takes to approve a loan, the more likely the borrower is to lose confidence, rate lock windows expire, or they seek another lender. Goldratt teaches that mismanaging a constraint is not just an operational issue, it can become a strategic one. Beyond the data, the human feedback is telling our underwriters are experiencing burnout. They face a daily flood of files and often work overtime to keep up, which leads to fatigue and mistakes. Loan processors express frustrations when files sit in limbo, creating a sense of lost momentum. Loan officers are affected too. They face pressure from customers asking for updates, but lack visibility once a file is submitted. Customers, meanwhile, complain of slow response times and repeat requests for documentation, which often stems from backlogs or incomplete internal tracking. These frustrations reinforce Goldratt's assertion that bottlenecks, if unmanaged, degrade employee satisfaction and customer trust, creating a compounding negative effect on the organization's overall health. So, using the TOC's 5 focusing steps, we can develop a strategic improvement plan. Number 1, identify the constraint. Clearly, this is underwriting. Number 2, exploit the constraint, prioritizing simpler or pre-qualified loans so underwriters focus on high-impact decisions. Number 3, subordinate everything else. Regulate how many files are pushed to underwriting with the drum buffer rope model, pacing flow so bottlenecks aren't overwhelmed. The underwriting step is the drum. No matter how fast intake or document collection happens, the pace of underwriting limits how fast loans can move forward. A buffer before underwriting might include fully verified, ready to review loan files. If processes or document systems are slowed down, This buffer prevents underwriting from sitting idle. Intake should only accept and push through as many files to underwriting team as they can handle per day, 12 files. The rope prevents flooding the system with excess volume that will just sit and wait. Number four, elevate the constraint. Hire contract underwriters or adopt AI pre-qualification tools that reduce file complexity before underwriting. Step five, repeat the process. Once underwriting improves, we must reanalyze the system to find the new constraint. These changes allow us to manage workload more effectively, improve customer timelines, and create a more sustainable environment for employees. As Goldratt noted, the key to operational improvement is not speed everywhere, it's flow at the right place. This analysis shows how the theory of constraints provides a powerful framework for diagnosing inefficiencies in complex service workflows like mortgage lending. By identifying and addressing our real constraints, underwriting, we can unlock better throughput, reduce queues, and meet customer expectations more reliably. TOC forces us to look at systems holistically rather than in silos and to drive improvements that actually move the needle. With thoughtful staffing, pacing, and support, we can transform this process and create a better experience for both internal teams and borrowers. Thank you for viewing this part of my presentation. Now, finally, we have the extra credit portion, which goes over forecasting in a mortgage lending environment. In mortgage operations, forecasting is focused on aggregation application inflow rather than individual loan types. Since customer choices and rates vary widely, it's more reliable to forecast overall demand and apply conversion assumptions, i.e., approval or closing percentages. These forecasts inform staffing plans, loan officer quotas, cycle time targets, and customer service expectations. Forecasts are created using historical data from our loan origination system, primarily Encompass. I use it every day. Reports are downloaded, manipulated in Excel, and track trends in submissions, locks, and closes. Managers adjust projections based on known seasonal cycles, like home buying spikes in quarter two, and anticipated interest rate movements. Forecasting frequency increases during high volume periods to ensure staffing and underwriting capacities align with demand. Forecasts are essential for cross-departmental planning. They determine whether to scale staff or to shift workload across teams. For instance, if projected volume spikes in April, the operations team may hire contract underwriters or authorize overtime. Sales managers also use forecasts to coach loan officers on pacing and pre-qual volumes. In a volatile rate environment, these forecasts prevent customer fallout due to missed deadlines or lock expirations. Forecast accuracy is monitored by comparing forecasted loan application volume to actual submissions. During stable periods, we have an aim for plus or minus 5% error through plus or minus 10% is acceptable during, I said through, though plus or minus 10% is acceptable during peak buying seasons. Unexpected economic shifts like sudden interest rate increases often create discrepancies. The organization is exploring smarter forecasting tools, including AI-based algorithms from our LOS vendor, which would help automate prediction and adjust for macro trends more dynamically. While the current forecasting process works reasonably well, it is heavily dependent on managerial intuition and manual tools. It's reactive, not predictive. Moving forward, the company should invest in AI models offered by our LOS providers and integrate broader market signals such as federal interest rate projections, economic indicators, and even consumer behavior analytics. Scenario modeling can also help teams stay ahead of volatility, especially in today's unpredictable housing market. That is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Have a wonderful day.